Hey there guys, Gone Lead here bringing you some of Echo Arena and Lone Echo. This is actually a bit of a different video here. I originally wanted to do Lone Echo as a story-based Let's Play, but I kind of burned through the game already, and I just thought, you know what, doing this as a Let's Play, it's not going to feel like a genuine Let's Play. So that's the reason why I'm doing this here. These two games are actually kind of different in my review list, just because of the fact that they're made by the same company from the same series. Pretty much, Echo Arena is a spin-off of Lone Echo, and Lone Echo has a couple of references to Echo Arena, quite simply put. And I quite like the way that works out, because it means that the games do have their own purposes within the series. And personally, that's actually quite good. At least I think so. Nevertheless, though, let's go ahead and get into this. Echo Arena and well, actually, let's go and start with Lone Echo, I should say. Lone Echo is actually a story-driven, narrative-driven, I should say, story-based VR game that I feel is not complete. In my opinion, I know I already just spoke highly about the game, and the fact that I say that is a little surprising. But reason being is that the game itself, the story of it is actually very, very short, and it's almost upsetting to hear that, because personally I absolutely loved the story of Lone Echo. It was actually pretty engrossing, and I actually enjoyed playing it to no ends whatsoever. In fact, actually, I played through the story multiple times already, just prior to recording this. I actually would recommend it for anyone looking for a good first VR game. Especially for if it's on the Oculus Rift, that is going to be very simple, nothing too intense, and plenty good in terms of like a story. Killing Floor Incursion that I did earlier, that one did have a story in it, and I kind of like its cheek and tongue yeah. Well, what is that called? Cheek and tongue? Tongue and cheek? Whatever the fuck it's called. Its comedic avenue of a storyline. I did kind of like that, but for someone wanting something that's actually going to be not so action packed, this is probably a game for you. Lone Echo is more of a story-driven game, as I mentioned, and it doesn't actually have like any sort of shooting aspects of it. But because this game is completely in zero gravity, it does actually allow you to experience something highly, highly new in VR that honestly no other game that I've actually experienced even comes close to replicating. Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades did actually get somewhat close to it with the Gunnasium, but it's not actually like full-on zero gravity. It's just basically you grabbing a handrail or a couple of handles and just dragging yourself along in the map. This game, it is actually properly zero gravity, so you kind of have to take a couple of pages out of like what astronauts actually do in zero gravity to be able to get around. And honestly, I absolutely love that. Just the whole idea of it is just, it gets me so excited just to think about it. Now, one thing that I will say now is that while yes, this entire game is in zero gravity, it doesn't exactly leave you helpless. You may actually see me doing a couple of Iron Man moves, if you will, with some wrist thrusters that I have on my character itself. This is something that all of the characters have. It does actually mean that you can get around without actually having to grab hold of anything. Granted, it's a little slow, but you can do that too if you wanted to do it, and it kind of makes it nice, especially late game. I'm not going to spoil anything as to why that is, but you'd really have to play the game to understand why I say it comes in handy late game. Now, in terms of my biggest critiques with the game, as I mentioned, the story is the biggest one. Lone Echo is a very, very fun game, and as I mentioned, I would recommend it to anyone looking for a game that is not on the action-packed side. There's no real shooting with this, but I would absolutely love to see a shooting aspect of the game at some point. But the game's story is about 4 or 5 hours long. It's actually very disheartening to hear. but at that same time, it is actually a lot of fun to play, even with as short as it is. I've during this playthrough that you're seeing here, I went ahead and off recording. Took some time to actually explore around the entire map. Yes, it is primarily open world. I say primarily fairly loosely because the open world part of it comes into play after about the first half of the game, and it only lasts for only a little while. The game is not completely open world. It is more linear, but at that same time, you can still explore around in space around like the Chronos 2 station that I'm in right now. Well, yes, I've seen some VR games actually do like full on open world gameplay. This one does it all in zero gravity and in space too, which is that's just freaking awesome. I really, really want to see more of this game. That's for sure. While we're on the subject of the zero gravity aspect of it, obviously this game does a very, very good job about showing how Newton's laws actually work. Newton's laws of motion, and the whole thing about it is just honestly, I've not seen any game actually do that. There's no other games that I've seen that actually does anything of that sort in terms of a movement system or a locomotion system. And that's probably what makes that makes these two games one of the more well-received titles out there for virtual reality, is just the fact that it's all in zero gravity. It takes full account of Newton's laws of motion, and it is absolutely fun to do. Granted, if you're kind of motion sick with VR, it gets to be a little much at times too, depending on if you have the visor on, like what I do right now. I find that the visor kind of helps out with the motion sickness, but at that same time, it is actually quite a very, very good game, to say the least. Just in the fact that you can literally catapult yourself off of a fast-moving object and actually be able to hit extreme speeds to no end, in which case it actually does feel like proper space. It really does. I always love catapulting myself off of players in Echo Arena, because that's actually one of the tactics that players use in that game. Or even then too, in the single player mode, they have these transports that actually shuttle you from location to location around the Chronos 2 mining facility, and personally I absolutely love just throwing myself off of those shuttles and going just ballistic towards the object, or towards where I need to go. And I mean, it does actually do a very, very good job of demonstrating that. Moving on to Echo Arena. Echo Arena is, as I mentioned, it's a spin-off title to Lone Echo, but they still actually they do actually relate with each other. So I mean, in Lone Echo you can actually see and hear different dialogues in relating to Lone Echo. It is actually kind of in there, but it doesn't have any direct relation with the story. So it wouldn't actually be something that you would be able to experience in the story itself, though that would be very, very cool, I think. But they do hint at, and this is actually something that I very much hope to see in future iterations of this game, combat. Yes, they do. The game itself does mention about combat itself, like your character has a bit of a backstory that is related to the military, but it's a little bit upsetting in the fact that you can't like wield any weapons or anything like that, and I personally would love to see that become a reality, just like being able to like counteract the recoil effects from firing a gun in zero gravity, things like that. That would just be so freaking cool. And honestly, I'm disappointed that this game doesn't really dive into that aspect, because the way it ends, I'm not going to spoil it, but personally, having some form of proper combat in this, similar to like what Lone Echo has, which basically you can basically hold the trigger and smack someone in the head, and that'll stun them. I kind of want to see something more of that actually appear in the game. But yeah, Lone Echo, you can actively do all that itself, and even then too, Lone Echo I describe its gameplay as being soccer meets basketball meets Call of Duty Sabotage, without the guns. It's a central ball, if you will. I always call it a ball, but it's a central target that you have to go after that that you have to score in the other person's goal. Quite simply put, it's really easy to pick up and learn if you've done the tutorial or played the Lone Echo game itself. So if you played Lone Echo, you can dive right in running. It plays exactly the same as Lone Echo, so the only thing you have to really learn is just simply how the game plays in terms of like how to actually goal or how to actually use the catapults, various things like that that the tutorial doesn't really explain. With a couple of things regarding the Lone Echo game, you should actually be able to pick that up pretty quickly, considering the fact that you can do all of that in Lone Echo. With Lone Echo's community too, the community is surprisingly helpful. I managed to actually get a hang of the game after about the first match, which was actually quite good because, from what I understand, most multiplayer competitive games or games that try to mimic esports, they basically leave you hanging after the first match, and it's just a matter of you having to learn how to do or how to play the game on your own terms. Honestly, I'm not that big a fan of that sort of thing. Counter-Strike was one of those games that did that, and it just kind of turns me off about the game. Lone Echo, though, it's a lot more balanced versus, like, say, Counter-Strike, where it's like if you have a sniper rifle and you're a decent shot with it or a crack shot with it, it's like you can kill everyone in one shot. With Lone Echo, you actually have to get physical in the game, quite honestly put, and it is actually very, very well built. I feel like as if it's one of the more balanced multiplayer games out there that actually demonstrates just how proper esports and VR should actually work. Because the game is relatively easy to pick up. If you're new to it and you skip the tutorial, it does have a little bit of a learning curve, but the lobby map itself does kind of get you a general understanding of like how everything works. So it does kind of help answer a few questions in terms of how you do everything, but it's very hard to master, quite simply put. And I actually like that about this game because it means that you actually have to have proper skill. Granted, I'm not the best, I'll admit that, but it is actually quite a fun game to pick up and play. And as I mentioned, I've actually been getting very engrossed in it to an extreme degree to where that's pretty much all I've been playing after I get off home from work. So that kind of says something about Echo Arena, because I'm very, very picky about my multiplayer games, to say the least. I think Battlefield is the only other multiplayer game that I play, and I tried Call of Duty a couple of times in the past, but I just can't get into it, like not even in the least bit. So, but otherwise though, that is primarily it for these two games. Lone Echo and Echo Arena. Both of these games are very much games that I would highly, highly recommend to a casual VR player. Echo Arena a little bit less so, just because of the fact that it is, well, more of a competitive game. But Lone Echo, at the very least, I would recommend as a must-have VR game, especially for anyone wanting a good first game in VR that is not gonna, make them shit the bed with excitement. I'm not going to spoil anything about the story, but it is actually a very, very intriguing story, and quite honestly, a fairly moving little story itself. I just kind of wish that there was more to it than that. Who knows? We may see more of this game in the future. I just don't really know at this current point. So, but otherwise, though, thanks again, guys, for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click the like button down below to let me know. And if you also want to help my channel grow, feel free to subscribe and spread the word as well. Otherwise, though, thanks again, guys, for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!